Hello all, my name is Amira Armond. I am the owner of Kieri Solutions, an authorized C3PAO, and I want to talk to you about the Kieri Compliance Documentation and the Kieri Reference Architecture, which are one big package split into two pieces, which can help your company become CMMC Level 2 compliant. So let me share my screen and I'll show you what this looks like. So we have offered the Kieri Compliance Documentation, the KCD, for over a year now. We have over 100 clients who have given us amazing feedback. And the Kieri Compliance Documentation is not technology specific. So it is purposefully technology agnostic. It's the policies, the procedures, your FIPS documentation, your user agreements, the way that you perform change management, the way that you perform maintenance, right? It's all that people-powered stuff that keeps you compliant, which is a ton of the compliance workload. So to be quite honest, the majority of CMMC compliance is performed with the KCD, with the manual processes. Over 240 out of the 320 assessment objectives are addressed by these policies and procedures. But we also have a technology component to this, right? So for pretty much every company, the KCD can be helpful. Even Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. We have some pretty big names using the KCD today. Those manual processes are still good, no matter what technology you're using. But if you have a need for a proven technology, for a proven architecture, right? You don't want to try and figure it out for yourself. You just want something that is going to support all the technology requirements of CMMC Level 2, then I would recommend that you look at the Kieri Reference Architecture. The Kieri Reference Architecture is based off of Microsoft 365, GCC High, which is the government community cloud high security version of Office 365. It's also going to use Windows 10 or Windows 11 computers. So this is not a virtual desktop enclave, though if you want to be, you can set it up that way. It's just Windows, it's just Azure, right? So it follows all the rules of the technology, meant to be as simple and as functional as possible, which means that the Office 365 cloud, for your email, for your Office documents like Excel, your SharePoint, and actual computers, so that you can do stuff like print, or use headphones, or record a meeting, right? Which doesn't necessarily work that well with these other high-tech solutions that don't give you a laptop. So you can work remotely, even if your internet's kind of lousy, right? The Kieri Reference Architecture is based off of the build that my company used for our own information system, which we had to build up and go through a CMMC Level 2 assessment to pass our DIBCAC assessment. So we've been using it ourselves for all the work that we do for the last 3 years. Works pretty good, but it does everything that we need it to do, and it's easy to maintain. It's low effort. So it's basically been one part-time sysadmin and one extremely part-time virtual CISO for us, right? Low cost. So how do these things combine? So if we start from the KCD, we have a system security plan that's packaged with the Kieri Compliance Documentation, and that system security plan is not technology specific, remember, right? So it's going to talk about policies and procedures and manual activities of compliance. So in this case, we're going to talk about mobile code, which is just one of the 110 requirements, and it's one of the most misunderstood requirements. So in the system security plan that's provided with the KCD, this is what the requirement for mobile code looks like. And you'll see that we have a lot of instructions. So because this is a misunderstood requirement, we added a couple paragraphs of explanation. Hey, mobile code means computer code that executes inside of a different application, right? So think of Office macros or scripts that run in your web browser. This is not cell phone stuff, right? We're not talking about cell phones when we say mobile code. We're talking about PowerShell scripts or web page scripts or Office macros or other things that can be easily shared that run in the context of a trusted app, right? And our explanation says, hey guys, most companies, you will control and monitor mobile code using your antivirus programs. Or you can also configure applications to disable script execution, right? You can go into your Microsoft Office and turn off the macro ability, for example. So when we go to the next page of the system security plan, the KCD gives some recommended ways to approach this requirement. So the KCD says, hey, we have a software inventory database, and we're going to list what mobile code is authorized inside this database. We're going to control mobile code primarily restrictions such as by disabling it within the application or preventing people from even accessing an application that can run it. The KCD gives some examples of what you might write depending on your technology. So we don't know what type of antivirus you're using. So it just puts some variables in there, right? And then the KCD also includes some policies. So in this case, the policy will require identifying authorized mobile code, restricting unauthorized types of mobile code, and ensuring that our antivirus can control mobile code. And you'll see this in just a second. So when we look at the actual policies in the KCD, you can see that as part of our secure build policy, there's instructions to disable mobile code technologies unless they have been listed as acceptable in the software inventory database. The next policy is for our antivirus, and it says that our antivirus will be configured to evaluate mobile code and prevent execution of malicious mobile code. And then our policy about the software component inventory says that we're going to keep a list of what mobile code technologies are authorized for use in our software inventory database. And as part of the KCD, we provide you database definitions, which you can use for your IT department. And one of those databases is the software inventory database. And you can see an example for Google Chrome that shows that Google Chrome is authorized and that it is allowed to run JavaScript and PDF mobile code. Right? This is proof. This is evidence that you will be showing your assessor for this requirement, that you're doing all the manual processes of technology, of compliance even. All right, so now we're moving into the KRA. How does the KRA fit into this? The KRA, this document right here, the M365 configurations doc, is our instruction booklet. So there's about 350 different tasks that you're going to go through one by one, starting from the top, to build your entire Microsoft 365 tenant, configure every policy, configure your Sentinel for logging, and check functionality. So what I'm showing you here is just the configs related to mobile code. And essentially, you can see what the instructions look like. This one says you're going to create an antivirus policy, which will apply to Windows. It's going to be named exactly like this. And you're going to see the file Microsoft Secure Configuration Baselines.xlsx, which is going to give you the full configs that you need to apply for this policy. And then these next two policies are attack surface reduction policies, which again are going to reference out to this baselines document for the attack surface reduction rules. So as you do each of these steps, you're just going to put the date completed. Maybe you might mark down a note. If you had any trouble with it, you might make a comment. And as you go through this, you'll show that every task is completed one by one. So this Microsoft Secure Configuration Baselines, this document has the extremely granular settings for every policy. There's over 1,000 settings in this document, and they're all based on Microsoft recommendations, or in the case of the SCUBA Secure Technical Guides, they are recommendations from the US government on how to securely configure this environment. So you can see every setting has a recommendation, and these are based on best practices. And then if, and we've tested them, right? We've been operating under this environment. So if it's a situation where you can make it more secure and it's not going to harm any functionality, we might say, we've made it more secure based on the principle of least privilege, and this is why. If for some reason the recommended setting causes a problem with functionality, maybe the recommendation is to disable printing, and some people need to print, we will give a recommendation for the setting here, and then we will explain, the original recommendation says to disable printing. We recommend enabling it if that's your situation. And then this is a different tab of the same document. This is the Antivirus tab. Same deal for mobile code. We're basically turning on our antivirus. This document is excellent evidence for your assessment. This shows that you're doing secure configurations as recommended by software vendors or industry groups or the government. It's showing that you have a baseline of what needs to be applied. It shows that you have reviewed all the configurations for least privilege. And then once you've actually performed the steps, this is what the technology is going to look like. You will have these rules configured or these policies configured in Microsoft 365. Now, the KRA doesn't stop there. We have instructions for how to build up a new computer, right? Because we had to build new computers in our environment. So if we had to do it, we have a procedure for it. So this step right here is where we add the computer to a specific group, which applies the mobile code security, as well as lots of other security. And then we have other tests, right? This is not the entire PC build checklist. Now, this right here is something that the Kieri Reference Architecture does differently from a lot of other solutions, because we know that some percentage of our KRA clients are going to ask us to build the environment for them. We have created a list of about 30 to 40 functionality tests. Those tests are everything from send an email and make sure that it gets to the destination to make sure that FIS mode is enabled in the registry. Right, so essentially it's an acceptance testing program where we've got all the things that we need to be able to see from a security standpoint and from a functionality standpoint. And if you're building it yourself, you should make sure that every single one of these tests passes before you start deploying into production. If we help you build it, we're going to be going through these tests ourselves to make sure that everything's functional for you. Now, part of the mobile code requirement said that you need to monitor mobile code, not just control it. So for everything where CMMC Level 2 requires you to monitor, we have very explicit instructions for this architecture in our audit log procedure, which is a big document. It's got about 50 different things that you can run or menus that you can go to see various information about the environment, depending on what's going on. So in this case, one of the mobile code related monitoring items is to review the PowerShell scripts that have executed recently. And so the audit log procedure says go to this location, and go to the advanced hunting area, and run this query. And this is what it looks like. So when we follow that procedure, go into Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, go to the Advanced Hunting tab, and we paste the procedure in, we get all these results for our environment, and we can see all the PowerShell scripts that have executed. Now, there's more types of mobile code out there. We have a script you can run to see the processes that have been started by your web browser, for example. It's very easy to modify to different types of mobile code. But this is exactly what we ran during our own assessment to prove to the assessors, one, that we can monitor mobile code, but two, that we know what we're doing. Right? When we can go straight to the correct procedure and get to the right menu and run and get results on demand, it gives the assessors a lot of confidence that you know what you're doing. Now, at the beginning of this presentation, you saw that we had the KCD, the Compliance Documentation System Security Plan. And it looked a little bit sparse. All right, it talked about the manual stuff. We're going to keep a software inventory. We're going to authorize the mobile code that's allowed in our environment. We have the following policies that help us know what to do regarding mobile code. But the KCD is not technology specific. Mobile code is very technology specific. So in the KRA, we give you the technology part of the system security plan. So for the control mobile code requirement, this is what the KRA includes. And you can see that it's much more specific. Mobile code is controlled with Defender and Smart Screen. Here's our exact policies that we use to enforce mobile code control on computers. They scan browser scripts. They block Adobe Reader from creating child processes. They block JavaScript and VBScript from launching download executable content. More technology, right? Monitoring mobile code is performed with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. If mobile code is detected or blocked as malicious, an alert will be created. And then this is what it looks like when you combine the two. So the bold is from the KRA, the technology-specific stuff, and the non-bold is from the KCD. Right? Both are still very relevant. You still need policies and procedures. But for this technology item, it's nice to have a full description of how you're doing it technically. So that's the end of the presentation. The KCD is good for basically any company that's interested in CMMC Level 2. It gives you some best practices, some simple examples of how to perform compliance within your environment, as well as all those accompanying user agreements and forms and record keeping that you want to do. The Kieri Reference Architecture is not for everyone. You know, if you're already using AWS, maybe you already have your own Azure environment, good for you, keep going, right? But if you are looking for a simple environment that you can build up in a few months, and there's a very, very explicit instructions on how to build it, how to maintain it, and how to keep it compliant over time, then I recommend looking at the Kieri Reference Architecture. Thank you.